You can't get in my cup tonight.
Even like the words being used, like admit, like I've done something wrong already. I have to admit people to the Zoom meeting. Okay, here we go. Hey, Lois.
Hi, Rabbi. Good evening.
How are you, Liz?
Well, thank you.
Why,
Hi.
something's not okay? I'm sorry, I didn't let you answer. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. You sound like you have a cold.
I think I might a little. Yeah.
Hey, Arona.
Hey, Rabbi.
Hey, Doris. Good to see you guys. All right. I'm going to... What did you say?
I've had enough winter. I want it gone.
I told you not to come back. You don't want to believe me.
Well,
Remember, I said, don't come back.
you were right. I shouldn't have. The air was awful and Phoenix was nice.
I told you. Bruce Bader.
Okay. So there is, in this week's Torah portion, which is Vayishlach, there is a story that's part of a story. So this little moment, Yaakov it's in the middle of the night. Yaakov is preparing to meet his brother. He's prayed, he's dividing up the camps, he's preparing gifts for his brother. He's very concerned. And then he's alone. Vayivater Yaakov levado. He's alone. Yaakov is alone. Veye avek ish imo. And a man wrestles with him ad alotdafna until the morning rises, until first light. Vayar kilo yocholo. So the pronouns are not clear here, but it seems that the one he's wrestling with saw that he could not beat Yaakov. Vayiga b'kaf yirecho, so he struck or touched him at his hip. Vateka kaf yerech Yaakov, and it seems to be dislocated over there. Ve'havko imo, as he's wrestling with him. Vayomer, and he said, Shalcheni, again, this seems to be the wrestler. He said, send me, ki Allah shachar, because the morning has risen. Vayomer lo ashal lechacha, and Yaakov says to him, I'm not going to send you, ki im be'erachtani, unless you bless me. Vayomer elov, and he said to him, Ma shemecha, what is your name? Vayomer Yaakov, and he said, my name is Yaakov. Vayomer lo Yaakov, ye omer od shimcha, and he said, your name will no longer be spoken of as Yaakov, ki im Yisrael, but rather Israel. Ki sarita im Elokim v'im anashim v'tuchal. You wrestled with Elokim. That word is ambiguous in this context. It could mean God. It could mean an angel. It could be mighty people. And you succeeded. Vayishal Yaakov, and then Yaakov asked Vayomer, and he said, Hagidana Shemecha, tell me your name. Vayomer lama zeh tishal lishmi, and he says, why are you asking me for my name? Vayivarech oto sham, and he blessed him there. So it ends on a sort of awkward note. Yaakov asked him for his name. He says, why are you asking me my name? And then he blessed him. And then it goes, Vayikra Yaakov Shem Makom Pniel. Yaakov called the name of that place Pniel. Ki ra'iti Elokim panim el panim, because I saw God face to face. Vatinatzel nafshi, and my soul was spared, or I survived. And then Vayizrach lo hashemesh kasher avar et Pnuel. The sun rose, started to rise as he's passing this place, Pnuel. V'utzalei al Yerecho, and he's limping. Al kain lo yochlu b'nei Yisrael at gid hanosha. Therefore, the people of Israel do not eat the gid hanosha, which many identify as the sciatic nerve. Asher al kaf hayerach, which is over there by the hip. Saket adayom hazeh, until this day. Ki naga b'kaf yerach Yaakov, because he touched or struck him, Yaakov, at the hip, begid hanosha, on the gid hanosha, and that's the story. So it's like a story within a little story. It's one amongst its various features. This story has this sort of confusing issue with pronouns. There's this mysterious person who he's wrestling with. There are those, and there are many commentators who are comfortable with this idea. There are those who suggest that what we're reading about is actually an internal struggle that's happening within Yaakov. That's why there's these confusing pronouns. It's meant to, in style, direct us to this this notion of this possibility that the reason it's not always clear who's who is because it's really all one being. We're talking about Yaakov, who's having an internal struggle. You could read the story of Yaakov and Esav going all the way back to their birth as a story of becoming, that what we, amongst the other themes in the stories of Yaakov, one of them is that he becomes something that he wasn't necessarily at birth. This is something that Rav Aaron Soloveitchik suggests. I read this years ago. There's a book of his ideas on Chumash that somebody did, which is The Something and the Light. It's called The Something and the Light. They're brief, just like brief treatments of some of his ideas on the Parsha. And he suggests this, that there's a way of reading the story of Yaakov, and especially Yaakov and Esav, as Yaakov growing into something that, or becoming something that he wasn't originally. And that's this moment. This moment is recognizing that he's achieved this, that he was on some kind of quest to become something that he wasn't necessarily when he began. Now, I don't know what this means to say that, but for instance, his name is called Yaakov, and now he's being told, you are no longer going to be called Yaakov, you're going to be called Yisrael, because you wrestled with Elohim and people, and you succeeded. That this is, it suggests that what this means is that you've sort of taken your place. You've become something that you weren't destined to be, possibly. Or let's put it this way: you may have been destined to be there, but you didn't have the basic goods to get there. You weren't given them. You had to sort of take them. And I don't know, from many other things that you read from Jewish texts and even from texts that are not so Jewish, when you read about who we are, when you say I, what do you mean when you say I? There's an assumption that whatever is you is already there. And that most of your work is to come to terms with what's there, or to acknowledge what's already there, or to become comfortable with what's already there, or to sort of touch base with what's already there. That's your work. But there is no sense that you need to pick something from the outside and bring it into you. In fact, you're cautioned against it in many worldviews of thinking that way. Even in the, let's say in Pirkei Avos, Ezehu Osher, who is a wealthy person, Hasameach Bechelko, who's happy with his portion. You might think that your fulfillment is outside of you, that you can only become whole or full if you're outside of, if you go outside of you. But it seems to be cautioning you, no, you already have everything you need. Ezehu Asher, who is a wealthy person, a Sameach Bechalko, one who's happy with his portion. You already, and this seems to be the counsel from all sorts of angles, that you don't need any more than you already have. You don't need to add. You don't need to grab. You don't need to take anything else in order to reach your full potential. Everything is already there.
But that doesn't necessarily preclude you from sort of looking inside and honing and sharpening all these things that you may not even realize are there, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right, but it's there.
Right.
That's the point. It's there. Of course, yeah, I agree. That, in other words, maybe identifying what is there and getting in touch with what is there is the beginning of growth, because you're going to take what's there and maybe develop it. But the notion that you need anything outside of yourself seems to be frowned upon. You are counseled against thinking that way. It is the seed of disquiet and unhappiness. Recognizing that you already have everything you will need is the path to equanimity. But there does seem to be this path with Yaakov. Again, this is just a path, but there are those who suggest it. Rav Aaron Soloveitchik said it in the name of I think I'll remember.
What does the word Yaakov mean?
So Esav uses it to mean deceit. V'yakveni zeh pamayim, he tricked me twice, or he was deceitful. It sounds like when they originally named him Yaakov, it's because he was grabbing onto Esav's heel,
right,
which is called the heel is called Akev.
So the name or the word Yaakov means deceit, or to be.
Well, it could mean he was named Yaakov because he was holding on to the heel of his brother. That's, if you look at the actual description in the beginning, he came out holding on to his brother's heel, and then he was named Yaakov. It's interesting because it's not, Yitzchak and Rivka do not seem to name him.
Okay, because what does the word Yisroel mean?
Yisrael means, and you wrestled with God.
So
and
to wrestle with God.
death. Right.
I'm just wondering, what is the relationship between this being deceitful or holding on to someone's ankle or leg,
right,
and wrestling with God? Why this change?
Right. So he suggests, I forgot who he said in the name of. It's on the tip of my brain. Anyway, so Rav Aaron Soloveitchik suggested that when Yaakov was born, he did not have a quality which Yitzchak assumed, or Yitzchak recognized would be an absolutely essential quality for the success of what would be the future progeny of Yitzchak. And that is gvura, might or power or strength. He doesn't have gvura. When he's characterized originally, he's characterized as sitting in the tent. And Esav was out, he was a hunter, he was moving from place to place, he was like, he's characterized as somebody who's ruddy and strong, he's a hunter. And Yaakov is Yoshev Oholim, he's Tom, which also could be sometimes translated as simple. He's characterized as simple, somebody who hung around the tent. And Yaakov and Esav is somebody who's outside, he's a hunter, he's a ruddy guy, he's a strong guy. And so this is how they explain why it is that Yitzchak favors Esav originally, because he just assumes that Esav has the character that's going to be necessary to be the Jewish people in the future. The Jewish people are going to have a responsibility that is going to require gvura. It's going to require strength, because the Jewish people are going to show up late to the party. They show up late to the party. By the time the Jewish people are a people, everybody's been a nation for quite some time. And all the lands are taken. And then you have this kind of new nation that emerges from Egypt late in the game without a place, and they're going to have to find a place at the table. Nobody else is going to want them to be there. So you have to. So they're always finding, this is the nature of Jewish history, we're always sort of justifying our existence because everybody else looks at us and they just are like, what are you doing here? We've already got this taken care of. And then we're always like showing up. And it's annoying. They don't really want us to be there. So we're always having to justify our existence. And this is, so the quality, one of the qualities that's going to have to be an absolute essential quality is going to be gvura. You're going to have a certain amount of strength. Gvura is not just strength. Gvura is stick-to-itiveness. Gvura is the ability to endure. A pregnant woman is gvura. In the formation of the child, her circumstance, her attitude during pregnancy, the entire pregnancy is characterized as gvura. Ezu Gibor Hakoveshes Yitzro. Who is the Gibor? Who is the mighty one? The one who is master of their inclination. So you have inner strength, but you also have this kind of ability to stick to it, a kind of stick-to-itiveness. Yitzchak is gvura. Avraham is called chesed. This is when they talk about the various people in terms of these characteristics, the sfirot. They associate Avram with chesed, with loving kindness, with expansion, with reaching out, with conquering. And then you have Yitzchak, who is gvura. Yitzchak is like maintenance. If you look at Yitzchak, he redigs all the wells that Avram already dug. He doesn't look, it's not sexy. Yitzchak's not sexy. He's like, he's maintenance. There was once a Freakonomics episode devoted to maintenance because they were making the point that many do, which is that entrepreneurs, typically, this isn't true of every entrepreneur, but mostly this is true, that entrepreneurs are good at starting it, but they're not good at maintaining it. They're not, or establishing it, or even taking it to the next level. Very, very often, it's almost always the case that when you have somebody who started something, somebody else is going to have to come in to take it to the next level, or to give it legs. afterwards. You have Steve Jobs or you have Elon Musk. You have a few people that are like exceptions to this, but for the most part, somebody else has come in, and especially the notion of maintenance, of what it takes to maintain something, and the fact that it's not interesting, and a lot of people don't want to spend time up thinking about it or find it hard to justify spending on things like maintenance, but it's absolutely essential for the success of something that's going to move forward. Yitzchak, in some regards, in other words, so Gevura is not just that you're strong. It is strong, but a big part of Gevura is also that you have this kind of stick-to-itiveness, and you're going to be able to hold out over the long run, because that's also part of the test that's going to be essential for the Jewish people. It's not like it's just for a minute that they think we don't belong. They're gonna think we don't belong for almost the entirety of Jewish history. We're constantly trying to wedge our way into some place of existence. And so this is, in a certain way, is going to be represented by Yaakov. But when Yitzchak is first looking at him, this is the suggestion. It's the Rokeach. The Rokeach is the source of this. So when Yitzchak looks at Yaakov, he doesn't see any Gvura there. So there's no way Yaakov can be the future. Esav is unbridled, but somehow he's got to be the guy, because there's just Yaakov and Esav has Gvura, and so he's going to be the guy. What he doesn't see originally in Yaakov is that Yaakov is going to get Gvura. And what we witnessed up until this moment of this story, it could be called how Yaakov got his Gevura. How Yaakov got his Gevura. Spike Lee would be the director of it, and so it's going to take, first of all, taking the blessings from Esav, which is a scary thing for him to do. Then living with Lavan for 20 years. That's like training. You're being thrown into the deep end of dealing with difficult people, and he comes out of it. God has to help him get out of it, but he comes out of it, and he is now at the end of this wrestling thing. He's done it. Whatever he now has the qualities that are going to be necessary to be the father of the Jewish people going forward. Everything up until then, and you could go through it. I've gone through it together with you guys and with other people. There's lots of detail, rich detail in the stories that all fit this narrative of him moving up towards getting his Gevura, and so it seems like that this is one of the important themes in the story of Yaakov that is having its moment, and we're getting to see kind of from the outside an indication that he's made it, that he got to that level of Gvura that is going to be necessary for the Jewish people to survive during all the circumstances that we're going to have to survive going forward. If you thought about the quality that is going to be most important to be part of the Jewish people, like we're told we're a charitable people. Even the Gemara says this. If you see somebody who doesn't have empathy or charity towards others, look into their lineage. They're most likely not Jewish. They might think they're Jewish, but look into their lineage, because if they don't show compassion and caring about other people and philanthropy and charity and stuff, so you would think that what characterizes a Jew? A Jew is a person who wants to make the world better, who wants to give of themselves to serve the world in some way. You would look at that. But here, there's a suggestion that one of the most important qualities we have is Gevura. It's a very important quality. We have Chesed that comes from Avram. We have Gevura that's going to come from Yitzchak, and Yaakov is going to bring them both together. Yaakov is going to be a kind of blending of the both of them, but Gevura is extremely important. That quality to endure, to not just to endure, to master, to be a master in a difficult situation, and to be able to maintain that state of mastery where you're not being dictated to, you are controlling the situation, you think of in Kung Fu, the very important TV series, the original Kung Fu series, where you have like these Chinese masters, the Shaolin masters who are training him, and they're often they're older men. One of them is blind. They're like, and the presentation is somebody who's sort of gentle and wise. But if you try to get past them, you're not going to get past them, right? You're not going to dictate their circumstances. They are always going to dictate the circumstances around them. They sort of represent this notion of Gvura that is expressed in Pirkei Avos, which is Ezu Gibor Hakovish Yitzro, who is the truly strong person, the one who masters his nature. You're the master of your nature. And when you are, you also set the terms outside of yourself. It's not like you always have to. You can be subservient when you need to be subservient. They need to be subservient, certainly to God and to their mission, but not to anything else. So this is that thing, and it's part of the message that Yaakov sends to Esav as he's sending a message. Originally, he sends it with the messengers who are going to talk to Esav. He says, I lived with Lavan for a long time, and now I'm here. In other words, he's sending a message. I've been well trained. I'm not the same Yaakov you knew before, right? So that's this moment. So, and I've thought about this notion for quite a few years that's going on over here. But then lately, I've been looking at this exchange within this story, this exchange about the names. So there's like 3 verses in a row. He says, Yaakov says to the wrestler, I'm not sending you till you bless me. So now the wrestler says, what is your name? And he says, Yaakov. So then he says, it's not going to be Yaakov anymore, it's going to be Yisrael. Then Yaakov asks him what his name is, and he says, why are you asking me my name? Now this is awkward. This is an awkward moment. Because he asked Yaakov what his name is. He asked Yaakov what his name is. So you would think etiquette would be that Yaakov would ask him what his name is. And so Yaakov does what he did. Maybe Yaakov's going to give him a blessing. Yeah, Yaakov asked him what his name is. And he goes awkwardly, why are you asking my name? And he won't tell him his name. That is awkward. And then there's another verse after that, which is Yaakov named the place. So this business about naming is the business about naming. It's in 3 or 4 consecutive verses. The wrestler who we're told, in the commentaries, the Midrash, that it's an angel. It suggests a little bit that he might be, because he said you wrestled with God, as it were. It sounds like he's talking about him. You wrestled with the angel. So it sort of suggests it. But again, I want to work with this notion that he's having an inner struggle. He's having an inner struggle. So how does this whole thing play out if he's having an inner struggle? So what would be the inner struggle? You could say he's trying to figure out all the way through, he's trying to figure out who he is. Who am I? That is a question that he's asking himself, because for some reason, he needs something outside of himself in order to be what he needs to be. even though generally this is not the case. But for some reason, Yaakov is going to. So Yaakov needs something outside of himself. He needs to bring in something outside of himself. And so until he's done that, he's not who he needs to be. So during this quest, he will ask, who am I? Maybe probing to find if it, looking to bring that quality into himself. And then finally, he gets to this point where that quality is now part of him. Who is he? He is Yisrael. He was Yaakov, but now he's Yisrael. There's something that's happened. He has succeeded in a way, and now he is something different. If you look at naming, one of the first things that we see Adam do, Adam names things. And over there, you'll see in commentaries that naming something is a kind of recognition of the purpose of something or the essence of something. That a real good name does that. A real good name isn't just a label. A real good name is a kind of window into the essence of the person. There are those who suggest that our names provide such a window, even though our parents are the ones who named us. But it is said, I think in the name of the Vilna Gaon, that they get a bit of prophecy, as it were, when they name us, that our name is not an accident. And our name provides some kind of a window into our nature. Naming and names are very important. So when it says he has a different name, it says it's a way of saying that there's something about his nature that has changed. For most of us, we don't need that. We don't want that. But he needed it. And perhaps for this, for the fact that the Jewish people are going to need some extra quality, which he was not given at birth. Why wasn't he given at birth? It's possible that he wasn't given it at birth to signify that the Jewish people are sort of out of place and we have to sort of work for our place. Another possibility is that there was a possibility of a partnership between Yaakov and Esav that never was realized. And had there been a partnership between Yaakov and Esav, Yaakov would have provided the Yaakov stuff and Esav would have provided the Esav stuff. And between the two of them, they would have had everything necessary in order to fulfill the mission, whatever the mission was. But Esav, at some point, it's clear he's not going there. And therefore, Yaakov is going to have to do it on his own. And in order for him to do it on his own, he's going to have to sort of take the qualities of Esav into himself. That's another option. Whatever it is, so at this moment, let's say he's having this inner struggle. So you could say that the question that he's struggling with is, who am I? And that's why this business of the naming is so important in the story, because the naming is suggesting that up until now, you were Yaakov. Now you're something new. You're something called Yisrael. Now you're something new. So the naming is the answer to the unspoken question. So the wrestling with himself was a wrestling over his own identity. And now he's being told that he has it. He has a new identity, and that identity, and this is what he was searching for. Because when you're searching for, you're not just searching for who am I? You're also perhaps searching for what is my purpose? What is my place? What am I supposed to be doing? What is my reason for being? So then I was thinking that the first time when, because again, he's wrestling with himself, right? So a part of him is saying, what was your name? Now, in other words, he has a self-realization that he has made it to this next stage, that now he's Yisrael. So then he asks, what is your name? And he's told, why are you asking my name? Something inappropriate just happened. Something inappropriate just happened. That's what it feels like.
If I'm trying to challenge myself,
Right.
why would I ask that?
Right. But especially because you just got to the point where you're told that you're Yisrael.
Right, why would I ask, why would they say that?
Right. So
I
now,
would think it would be something like, well, don't you know?
Well,
You
no,
know,
it's
like that
like-
would be the answer
Well, no,
instead of
it's-
why are you
look into
asking?
yourself.
Right.
Right,
Don't you
or,
believe in don't you believe in yourself?
Right. So now, what? So I'm thinking like this, that when I am experiencing my person, my I, in most circumstances, I don't experience it as one. I experience it as having different components, what I call different voices. So there's like the voice, which is like, I call it the manager or the secretary. It's the one in charge of my day. You know, it's ticking off. You got to be here. You got to be there. You're late. What are you doing? This is like the 10th time that you've done X, Y, Z, whatever, that voice. Right. And then there's, but there's other voices. There might be the when I get angry, there might be a voice that I might think of as my child, of me as a child. There might be a voice that I think of as a kind of wise teacher. They're all different voices. They're all expressions of what I will call my I. And at different points, they kick in and they sort of take over. So usually it's, let's say, the secretary. It's usually running my day, but then at different times it could be different things. I call them voices, my voices, but they're different sort of expressions of I. And so no one of them is the entirety of my I. In fact, none of them might be very deep. None of those ones I mentioned might be the very deep part of who I am. And there are times where this was something that during Corona, I sort of discovered this while I was looking into silence and people who are silent and stuff. I came across this figure who's called Ramana Maharshi, who was his path, the one he stressed over and over, was this path where you asked yourself, who is I? You would just ask yourself, who is I? And you would sort of explore that, like, I'm not my this. So then who is I? I'm not that. Who is I? I'm not my where I went to college. So then what am I? I'm not my profession. Then what am I? I'm not this. What am I? I'm not my feet. I'm not my fingers. I'm not my senses. I'm not my, etc. And you're exploring. But the way you do it is by asking, who is I? And this is something that I started doing a couple years ago. And it's sort of a deep thing. But there is a place where you get to something where you recognize that just the question alone sort of stops the voices. It can happen. It sort of just stops the voices. And if you just stay there with the voices quiet, there is an I that's there. It doesn't need to be labeled. It doesn't need to be anything, but it's your eye. It's you, my eye. So part of the process is recognizing that there are many labels that I've sort of become comfortable with when thinking about myself that are not me. They're not really me. And it shouldn't matter, except that every once in a while I can get into, they can cause me an existential crisis. Like if I think that I'm, let's say, a rabbi, and then I can't do that anymore, or I think I'm a doctor and I can't do that anymore. So now, did I cease to exist? What if I retired and I stopped doing it? Am I no longer me? I can start to have existential crisis just because I bought into the idea that that was me in the first place. So when that stopped, so you can see that letting go of those things could be very important, allowing those things to go away and recognizing that I have been there the whole time and I'm not any of those things. And it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. If they all disappeared, it's okay. And also I found, through much of my life that one of my voices is the storyteller. That it is in charge of the story of my life. I didn't realize how important this was to me. It was very important to me that my story be my story. And so every time I'm going through a situation or something happens, I'm trying to, tell the story. And now everybody has to accept my version of the story of what happened, because that's who I am. I am somehow my story. And letting go of that was that's been one for me, one of the hardest things to do, letting go of my story. And letting that voice, just recognizing it's just one of those voices. It's not anything deep. It doesn't matter what version of anything anybody tells. It doesn't matter if my version is out there. It doesn't matter what anybody knows about what I've done or how they tell what I've done. It doesn't matter. It used to be I would correct people. I still do sometimes. And then my kids make fun of me when I correct something, because what do you care? Why are you correcting that? It's just funny when you notice it from the outside, that storyteller voice. It's like and my friends have some way of telling my story. My wife has a way of telling my story. My children have a way of telling my story. My students have a way, and not every one of them is the same. And one of them is not any less real than another one. They're all whatever they are. There is no there, and so letting go of that's part of also, like, in the allowing the I that's underneath to just exist without attaching to it any of these other things, letting them go, just letting them go. But there's not nothing there. Everything is still there because they were never it. They were never it. So the thing is, there's a reason why the angel, I want to suggest that there's a reason why the angel, it's appropriate for the angel to give him a name, but it's not appropriate for him to give himself a name. It's useful for the angel to give him a name. Let's say we're calling him an angel, because we're reading the story. There is a story. For the purpose of the story, it's important that he have a name, because we need to understand the story. This is a story of the Jewish people. It's a story it's a very important story. We're reading a story. We need things to be named. We need to understand the elements of the story. We need to learn the lessons that are going to come from this story. So for the purpose of the story, it's important that he has a name. And the fact that his name gets changed, that's very important for the purpose of the story. It's never important for Yaakov. Especially not after he was told, whatever you were trying to do until now, you did it. Now let go. You did it. Now let go. It's never for this, whoever needs a particular story of David's life, whoever needs that story, they're going to get that story and they're going to be told it in a certain way. But it's never important to you. Your story is not important to you. Your name is not important to you. There's nothing you need to know about what's inside. It's already there. It's already there. There's nothing you need to know. There's no narrative you need to have. There's no vantage point you need to have about your essence. You just have to let it be. For other people, maybe they have to know it. What was his name? Who was that masked man? That they may need to know it. And for the story, if the story is important, whoever's going to tell that story, it'll be important that they name things and they name you and they etc. And the elements of the story that they're going to tell are important, but it's not important for you. Lama zatisha al lishmi. Why are you asking my name? In other words, for Yaakov himself, you don't need, this is unimportant. I've already told you, you accomplished whatever you wanted to accomplish. You do not need to know more than this now. Don't go looking there anymore. This, in other words, just be it. Don't think it. Don't explore it. Just be it in this thing. You have, and a lot of it, in order to really fully realize it, you just have to let it be. Your essence doesn't need anything more than that. You don't have to know more. That you don't have to study it. You don't have to. You just have to sort of be it. Obviously, you're going to have challenges, and you're going to have to find within yourself this quality and that quality, and you're going to try to do the best with them that you can do, etc. But you don't need to. Who is I? My experience with that, in the limited way that I've had the experience in the last couple of years, is just that once you ask it, it just frees you of all the voices and just allows you to just be, as opposed to all the thinking about being, all that stuff. It just lets it go, and you could just sort of be. It doesn't mean you don't have anything to do, and it's not important what you do. It just means that that is not the way you're going to end up accomplishing what you need to do. You're going to have challenges, and you're going to have to call forth strengths and things like that, and they will come forward. And you will apply them, and you'll apply whatever character traits that need to that are useful in the moment, and you'll call them forward, and you'll try your hardest to do them, and you'll learn from the mistakes of what you've done, and you'll learn from your successes, etc. But naming yourself, that you don't need. You don't need to do. You don't need to go there. You just need to sort of let that be. Because again, he's wrestling with himself. So when he says, "What is your name?" he's asking his own name. After he was already told this other information, he's still interested in exploring it. And he's being cut off. Stop that. Stop that. This is not, you don't need that. All righty. Nothing was said today. Nothing of importance.
Disagree.
But we got to share a moment together. And for me, that was very, very important. Thank you for being there. And I look forward to doing this. I say we do it again. What do you guys say? Next week? I say next week. All right. Be well, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Rabbi.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.